Hello there, and welcome to Politics 101. I am very careful not to say good evening because it's only evening for some people, and I don't want to continue to appear to be biased. Good evening to those of you who are in Guyana and the wider Caribbean, and those of you who are in North America. It's a little bit early, somewhere in between afternoon and evening. Certainly, it's afternoon for those people in Arizona. And I understand quite a few people in Arizona do tune in to the program. After all, Arizona is where I work. And so some people do join us. So good afternoon to people in Arizona. It's just 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Arizona. Good afternoon to those of you. And I don't want anybody to be saying that I don't greet Arizonians. Good evening to you if you're joining us from Arizona. And I want to say a very special welcome to you. Good evening to those of you who are joining us from the United States of America and Canada. And for those our friends out there in Europe, good night. Good night. Good night to you if you're coming to us from Great Britain, from the wider continent of Europe. Good night. And those of you who are in other places, it might be in the morning there. Welcome to Politics 101, our Tuesday edition. And as we come on air tonight, another targeting of African Guyanese, this time coming from the cooperatives, or those who are in charge of the cooperatives, threatening to take away land, what they call unused lands, from the cooperatives. My God, it never stops. From Linden to the vendors in Georgetown, to Mocha, to the highway. And now they're saying unused lands from the cooperatives, they're going to take it away. What more? What more? What more? What more? Anyhow, we're going to be talking about that and other issues in the news. They're debating the budget right now in Parliament. Mark Benschop is here. He is here. Last week he should have joined us, but he got caught in the weather there in New York. And tonight he's here. I make sure that he's here before we get started. So welcome to Politics 101. Quite a presentation last night, yesterday, from Amanza Walton Desir, who dealt with the threat by the minister responsible for cooperatives for threatening to take away lands from the cooperatives. And then there's a wonderful piece by GHK Lal in Demerara Waves. So if you guys can check for Amanza's presentation in Parliament, I think she may have kicked off the debate for the opposition side, but I caught her presentation last night. And I think it was an excellent presentation, and she dealt with this question of targeting African Guyanese and their lands. And she made it clear it wasn't fudged. She spoke directly to the issue. Because as you all know, one of the problems I have is that when our politicians come to speak on the issue of race, they dance around the issue. You know, yes, they're taking away lands from African Guyanese, but there's always a but, you know? There's always a but. The fact of the matter is that one ethnic group is being targeted for the appropriation of land, what I am calling land grabbing on the part of the government. No other ethnic group is having that kind of treatment, is getting that kind of treatment. And so I want to congratulate Sister Manza for speaking directly to the matter, because I am fed up when our party politicians come to deal with the issue of race. They never deal with it frontally and allow the PPP to get away with practicing racist policies and getting away with it because it's not being called that. Moko, some of us were talking about squatting. The issue was not squatting, is not squatting. How can people be squatting on their own lands? Those people were not squatters. Those people were human beings. They were all African Guyanese. And they wanted to make the issue squatting, about squatting. And we had to change the narrative. It's not about squatting, it's about racial discrimination. It's about targeting one ethnic group. It was not about eminent domain. The people in front of the hospital selling, they wanted to reduce it. That these people that were there unbugging traffic going into the hospital, no. The issue was about people making a living. People making a living. And they were mostly, if not all of them, of one ethnic group. No, no, the minister is targeting cooperatives. And this is something that has been going on. I know of the case at Melanie Damishana that I was personally involved with last August, July, August, as they went in there trying to take control of that cooperative, that co-op. It was the case in other villages. The question of land in BV triumphed. Going after the lands of African Guyanese. This is an existential threat. Land, land, land. Since 1897, the British government sent a commission to the islands and the mainland states, to the Caribbean, the English-speaking Caribbean, 1897. Famine in the Caribbean. People were dying, starvation. And as usual, the British didn't believe that people were dying of starvation because of the legacy of slavery. And they sent a commission. And that commission reported to the British that you granted, or the people won, their freedom through emancipation in 1838, but they didn't have the tools to transform the emancipation into development. And that they needed capital. They needed land. 1897. The Chinese came afterwards. The Portuguese came afterwards. And they were given affirmative action. The Royal Commission of 1897 said that if Black people in the Caribbean were to make the most of emancipation, they should be given land. Our people in Guyana had already bought land. They were priced out of the market, or else they would have bought more. Land, land. At independence, the Amerindians were given land. When our East Indian brothers and sisters came out of indentureship, land in the environs of their state. Land, land. In America, citizenship was tied to land, land. Native Indians were driven off their land and sent to the West in the Trail of Tears. By law, land, that land was given through lottery to poor white men. And they got that land and they became citizens. And they became rich. Land. America went to war in 1840 with Mexico and annexed 1/3 of Mexico. Land, land, land. The Louisiana Purchase of 1804, land. And instead of giving land to African Guyanese or leaving their land alone, this government is taking away land. It is not an accident, my brothers and sisters. This is not propaganda. This is the process of underdevelopment or further underdeveloping Africans. Yes, we have found oil, but man shall not live by oil alone. We can't eat oil, we can't drink oil. Man shall not live by oil alone. We are an agricultural country, agricultural country. Land, land to make a living, land to live on. As the old Africans would say, look at land, a God country. And they're taking it away from us. The dust has not settled on Moko yet. And they're moving now to take away the land from the co-ops. Oh my God. Oh my God. What have Black people done in Guyana to deserve this? I say to you all, do not take this matter lightly. It is a dispossession of the African in Guyana. Not me saying it, the government doing it. Welcome to Politics 101. You're joining us from wherever you're joining us. Welcome to school. Tonight, welcome to school. We're wrapping everything together. The teacher, the preacher, teaching, preaching, the political activists mobilizing. Welcome to Politics 101. And let me bring in my brother immediately, because I'm sure he has more to say than I do. Brother Mark, good evening.
Hi, Dr. Hinds. Good evening to you. Good evening to your viewers as well.
And Happy New Year to you. If that salutation is applicable, then yes. But I'm saying it more as a cultural salutation than one of reality.
Thank you.
Brother Mark.
Happy Kwanzaa to you. And I can't say a happy New Year because we already know how the new year has started. We all want the best. but there are thousands of people who are being displaced in Guyana, thousands of people who are being targeted as a result of their ethnicity. And so it's easier for us who are not there to say happy, but those who are there, those who are faced with this sort of brutality meted out to them by this installed, corrupt, racist PPP regime, it is not easy to say happy. But for those who are optimistic, I say, hey, let us hope for a happier or a happy uh, 2023, a prosperous 2023.
Mark, I teach a course called Race and Racism. And every time I teach that course, in the first couple of weeks of the semester, my students are always at sea. Black students, white students, brown students. Because a real assessment of what race and how race operates and how racism operates, we take it for granted that our people understand it. And for African Guyanese and Black people across the world, it's an instinctive thing. They have a sense of it, a sense of it. But when you get down to really trying to explain how it operates, where it came from, how it evolved, you then realize that our people are often not as literate about race and racism as we think they are. And in Guyana, we have always had this problem of people tiptoeing around the issue of race and, trying to say race is something. I hear some very empty people calling themselves Marxists, saying the issue is not race, it's class. And, how can you look at people of particular colors and look at the treatment they're getting and say, you don't see race, and so on? Are you satisfied, Mark Benschop, that we are beginning to deal with race in the way it should be dealt with in Guyana?
A lot of persons of African descent are basically afraid to touch the issue because they're afraid to offend individuals. They're afraid to offend their friends. They're afraid to offend maybe their colleagues at work or those who they drink with. Because anytime a person of African descent address the issue of race, there's always this high possibility of he or she being described as a racist. So people prefer to skirt around that issue, and instead they, whatever, because they're afraid. Just as you have been highlighting the issues in terms of land, the taking away of lands primarily by person of African descent. A lot of Guyanese of African descent in Guyana, whether they're business people or whatever, whether they are pastors, they're reverends, whatever, they are afraid to address the issue publicly because of that label. Immediately they'll be labeled as racist. And so they're very reluctant to touch on these very sensitive topics, which is very straightforward. Look at what happened to the people of Mocha. It's not by coincidence that Irfan Ali and the regime rolled up in Mocha and disrespected the people, bulldozed their houses, bulldozed their farmland, all these manner of things. It's not a matter of accident that these things happen, but they're happening because those people in Mocha are who they are, Black people. And Black people in Guyana are afraid to call it as it is, to say that it's a racist agenda by the installed PPP regime. They're just afraid because they want to fit in. And the time has come for them to stop wanting to fit in, stop wanting to be politically correct, and to basically address the issue for what it is. It is a racist agenda by a racist, installed, illegal, corrupt PPP regime.
Brother Mark, as we come on air tonight, the story is boiling up there in Memphis, Tennessee. The young man, 29 years old, beaten almost to death, dying 3 days after. The videos are out. It is clear that he was beaten almost to death, as I said, and died. Five black policemen in Memphis, Tennessee, beating a young black man again and again. I asked my pastors today, if you hear about that incident, very few of them, because it has become so normative, so normative. And there we are in Memphis, Tennessee, in Georgetown, Guyana, in Mocha, Guyana, the same thing. Assault on blackness. Your comments.
Yeah, a lot of and especially our younger folks as well, they seem to be distracted in matters that are inconsequential. And so these very important matters they pay very little time on, they or attention to. But when we look on social media, some of the things that are trending, you want to know whether these people are totally out of the loop of things, of reality, of far more important things that are happening. And so a lot of times when you look at the social media events, things that are shared hundreds of times, probably thousands of times, are not issues such as what happened in Memphis, Tennessee. They don't discuss the issue, what happened to that woman and other folks out there in Mocha, things that are happening to people out on the Linden Soestdijk Highway, where covetous and corrupt businessmen who are connected to the PPP regime are going into people's farmland on the Soestdijk Linden Highway. They have done what they did to Mocha. And so very little debate is being had with regards to these brutalities on social media. So you're going to find things like, for example, if there's a big cuss out, if there's a big views out, then that becomes the trending issue, primarily amongst our young people. They're going to share it umpteens of times. And when you look at these things, you're like, are they really paying attention to these important events other than the gossiping and who did this and who did that and that sort of gossiping? I don't know, and we have to use our platform to, and I don't want to disrespect young people or others in general, but we have to re-educate our people. We have to have our people focus on what is important, because if they don't, then corrupt individuals, racist individuals, what we're seeing in the PPP or the Private Sector Commission, are going to use that as a tool to destroy us, to destroy our people, to walk into our communities such as Mocha, a village that was built, a village that was purchased by African ancestors, those who were enslaved back in 1897. That village has a rich history of people pooling up their monies to purchase majority of that village. But here it is today. We have the likes of Irfan Ali and other corrupt individuals in the PPP, corrupt individuals in the Private Sector Commission, drug lords and money launderers and gold smugglers who want to covet the people's land, that we are sitting back and allow these individuals to roll up in Mocha, disrespect our people, disrespect our women, destroy an entire community, and nothing is being done about it. And I repeat, nothing is being done about it. The regime did that to the people of Linden, part of Linden, when they rolled up last year. They bulldozed a woman's home. They disrespected the woman, a black woman. And these things can only happen to black women. And we got to speak out. We got to be straight up about these situations. We can't pussyfoot around. We can't try to be nice. Oh, we have Indian relatives, we have Indian friends, or we have Portuguese. We all have Indian relatives. We all have Indian friends, or at least most of us. And we gotta stop pretending. We gotta stop sugarcoating things because we don't want to offend our Indian friends or our Indian relatives. I've long gone past that stage. It is what it is. The PPP regime is out to target persons of African descent. The PPP regime is out to destroy black villages, black communities, take away primarily lands belonging to black people, African people. That is what they're about. They got away with it in Linden. They went into Mocha. Thus far, they have gotten away with it. No opposition, no one in the opposition, or majority of them, are hardly speaking out about it. The opposition leaders seem to just roll up into Mocha, just walked around, and that's the end of it. In Linden, no proper representation, that's the end of it. Mocha, no proper representation, that's the end of it. This is not to say that a few folks in the opposition may not have gone in there in Mocha and embraced the people and stand in solidarity with the people. We have seen it. We have seen the likes of a Simona Brooms in there. And I say salute to Simona. We have seen the likes of that young MP, Nina Flew Best, trying her utmost to confront the ills of the PPP regime. We have seen a Roysdale Ford and a few others, but that is not enough to confront this illegitimate, this corrupt, this racist installed PPP regime. If we don't do it, guess what's going to happen? They are on their way to Linden Suzdijk Highway to bulldoze people's lands, to take away their lands, people who have been there for 25 years, 35 years, 40 years. All they're doing it in the name of some crap development, where we have drug lords who are already in there coveting the people's lands, gold smugglers who are already in there coveting the people's land. We have so-called businessmen who have their henchmen in there firing shots in the air on weekends and so forth. All of these individuals are connected to the PPP regime. And the question I asked Dr. David Hinds, what is it? What is it that our opposition folks are doing to confront these brutalities, mainly against persons of African descent? We're not hearing anything. All we're seeing is a bunch of these individuals in the opposition roll up, so to speak, smile for the camera, speak because the cameras are there, and once the cameras disappear, they disappear with the cameras. The AFC, the leadership of the AFC, is quiet about the brutality meted out to the people of Mocha. They're not there. They're not on the ground. They just go do their show once a week, call some AFC on the move. I don't know on the move where, probably in some tunnel. They're not speaking out against these issues. They're not on the ground with the people. They're not grounding with their brothers and sisters on the ground so that people can see that these AFCites are concerned about the plights of the people. Politics is not just going on a show, on their TV show and social media and talk a bunch of crap about they care about the people, and nothing is being done about that. The AFC has quite a few lawyers. We're not hearing that these lawyers are coming together to have some sort of class action lawsuit to take this illegitimate regime to court with what they've done to the people of Mocha, to what they're doing to the people on the Linden Suzdijk Highway, or so forth and so on. These individuals in the AFC seem all about power. That is all they want. And whatever it is that they can use the ordinary people belonging mainly in the opposition to get into power. And then when they get into power, they kick the entire support base of the opposition in the rear. Sad to say that the AFC is lacking. The AFC is responsible for what the PPP is doing to the people, primarily in the African Guyanese communities. And I asked the question, had it been our brothers and sisters in the Indian communities who were being brutalized like this, whether Ramjatan and others in the AFC would have remained quiet? I doubt that. If it was the fishermen who were being treated like this, would Ramjatan remain so quiet? I doubt that. If there were Gaisuka workers being ill-treated like this, would Ramjatan and the AFC folks remain this quiet? I doubt that. And not only are the AFC folks quiet, what about the other smaller parties of the coalition? No one is speaking out. Well, of course, I see the WPA doing their things, and I give the WPA through Kadaki going around, and he's trying his best. You guys are trying your best. But what about the other parties? There were other smaller parties in the coalition. They rushed quickly after they were kicked out, so to speak. and these corrupt individuals were installed. We heard about new parties. Where are those individuals? Where are the leaders of those parties? What are they doing to confront this corrupt and racist PPP regime? The leader of the opposition is not doing enough. Some people may suck their teeth and say, what more do you want him to do? Well, I'll tell you this, he was elected to do more. He promised that he's going to confront this PPP regime. Claudette Singh got to go, and all of the ills. People who are writing letters, time to stop writing letters. People who are church leaders should not be political leaders. And now it's time for a top leader. That is why people supported Aubrey Norton. But Aubrey Norton got in there. He got 10 times worse than the people who were described as church leaders. He got 10 times worse than the people who were described as writing letters and so forth. What exactly is the opposition doing? Other than pretending to be pastors and reverends. And so when those of us who speak on social media or on these sort of platforms, guess what? We are being ridiculed by those who are in leadership of the PNCR. We are being ridiculed for talking the same language that Aubrey Norton was talking when he was running for leadership of the party. That he's going to do this and he's going to do that. But suddenly now we are being consistent with our language. We are being consistent in holding this corrupt PPP regime accountable, confronting them, only to be told that we are radical and we want broke up. Some of us want broke up the country and we got to be responsible and strategize. What strategy? Holding who accountable is the opposition, the combined opposition inclusive of the AFC, even though they have walked away. Are they holding this corrupt PPP regime accountable? Are they standing up and representing the interest of those who have supported the coalition? Are they in Mukka representing the people? Are they in Linden representing the people? Are they on the Suzaik Highway representing the people? For the most part, the answer is no. Fancy speeches about race, fancy talks in a so-called budget debate is not going to help the situation. It's not doing anything to help the situation other than to help those individuals with their fancy speeches, their so-called fancy speeches and budget talks and budget debate. At the end of the day, the budget talks and the budget debate does nothing for the people of Mukka. Nothing at all. I don't know what's happening, but hey, you invited me to talk, and I want to talk. But let me give you an opportunity, sir.
Thank you very much. And you know when to interrupt and when not to interrupt. Mark Benschop really doing what I call a self-critique of the opposition, because I consider Mark and myself and all of us who try our best there in the evenings to hold things together, I consider all of us part of the opposition. And it is not criticizing the opposition, but a full-throttled critique of the entire opposition. And I think there comes a time in any struggle when we have to look ourselves in the mirror and ask, are we doing good by our people? Are we doing good by our people? And so, Mark, I welcome your critique. And as I said, I remain quiet because I wanted you to expound, as they would say in the villages. You mentioned the budget, Mr. Benschop. What do you make of this budget? We hear the PPP people saying there's something in the budget for everybody. And I tell them there is something in the budget for everybody. But what is in the budget for whom? What is in the budget for poor people? What is in the budget for Black people? What is in the budget for women? women. What is in the budget for children? We know what's in the budget for bridges and roads, and we know who will get the contracts, build the bridges and the roads. So we know where all that money that's in the budget for infrastructural development is going to go. We live in Guyana, we know roads are built today and broke up tomorrow. We know you start the road at Timeri, and by the time you get to the Susdite Highway Junction, the side broke up already. Mark Benschop, is there something in the budget for everybody?
It's not a budget. You know, oftentimes, Dr. Hinds, these people say that it is the biggest budget. If it is the biggest budget that is supposed to be there to last for the entire year, why a few months after they go back for billions of dollars more if it is the biggest budget? It is not a budget. It's more a Ponzi scheme where they attempt to brainwash people, and the billions of dollars within that budget, taxpayers' money, majority is given to their friends and cronies and concubines and corrupt individuals, corrupt so-called contractors. It's given to money launderers, gold smugglers. It's given to drug lords. And guess what? Crumbs. They're going to give a few handouts, pink slips and these sort of things to make it appear as though they care about the people. Irfan and these lunatics, political lunatics, are not concerned about ordinary people. Of course, we know that they are disrespectful towards persons of African descent, but they're not concerned about ordinary Guyanese, whether they're Indians, whether they're Africans or indigenous or poor. They're not concerned about the poorer class people of Guyana. And so the bulk of that Ponzi scheme, described as a budget, is going to go in the hands and in the pockets of their corrupt friends in the private sector commission and so forth. That is what it is about. They're going to give out billions of dollars of contracts to their friends and cronies who know nothing about contracts, who know nothing about building roads, who know nothing about building hospitals, who know nothing about building schools. Talk about building schools. I've seen recently schools are being burnt down. I wonder why. Police stations are being burnt down.
You got to build them back.
I wonder why. All of these things. And when you look at the contracts, it's being given, 99% of the contracts are being given to their friends and cronies. And the 1% that you hear, somebody maybe out in Linden, a Kashif and Shanghai, and them get a little contract. That is crumbs. That is basically leftover crumbs to make it appear that they're distributing the wealth equitably across the board. They're not. They're discriminating against people, especially persons of African descent. And back to this budget thing. I don't listen to the budget debate. It is a waste of time, waste of my energy. And then when some of these opposition people, it's as though some of them just wait for budget time so that they could put on a nice skirt suit or a pantsuit, and they walk up there with a briefcase and the speeches and all these things. They're acting for the cameras. I want those individuals to go into the communities and be as vociferous as they are when they supposedly debating the budget. Go in Mocha, talk to the people, represent the people. Go in Linden, go in other places, go on the Susdite Linden Highway, and the same energy that they have to debate a budget. Go in those communities. Standing in parliament to debate a budget is a waste of time. It is just basically to promote themselves because it does nothing for the ordinary man and woman out there, particularly their support base. Absolutely nothing. If I had my way and I were in parliament, you know what? I will boycott that budget. I will use my speech, my time allotted to me, 30 minutes or whatever, to show video clips as to what transpired in Mocha. And how is it that the budget, this so-called budget, will benefit the people of Mocha? How is it that this so-called budget will benefit the people at Eversham, Philippi, on the quarantine, Blackbush Polder, or Bartica? How is it the budget is going to benefit those people, the people in Ituni that we hardly hear about, the people in Kokwani that we hardly hear about? How is it that that budget is going to benefit people? Show the clips of that. Don't waste your time with a debate. It gets nowhere, because at the end of the day, we're going to hear the budget pass, story done. And everybody get a little 15 minutes of fame. All of them on the opposition, they smile, they walk out. They can take pictures with them walking in with a nice suit. And don't get me wrong, I'm not, they should dress up and stuff. But I want them going to communities. I want them going to Sophia. I want them going to the stronghold areas. And the same energy they should have in those communities. Don't wait until an incident happens. Then they rush down there, they take pictures, they take photographs, and they talk with the press, they show up themselves, and they disappear thereafter, waiting for another incident to occur. I don't buy that.
Clearly, Mark Benschop is fired up here tonight and really spitting it out as he sees it. This is the Mark Benschop that we have come to know over the years. You don't have to agree with him, but the logic of his arguments here tonight cannot be successfully challenged. We do have work to do on the opposition side. You cannot have a government that is in the face of your people, slapping them, boxing them, beating them, and all you do is stand back and watch. What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? Are we waiting for an election? These people who you are not standing up for, you will need them to vote at an election. And if they are as alienated as we think they are becoming, when you are looking for them at the ballot box, whenever the election is called, they wouldn't be there. So even if your agenda is election, elections do not operate in a vacuum. They do not. I went around with the WPA to 23 villages before the last election. And we reported to our colleagues in the APNU that we feared that 25% or thereabout of our people would not turn out to the polls. We needed 82%. According to poll done, I understand, by the FC, by the coalition. And so we warned them that people in the communities were dissatisfied. I argued with people, many young people in Hansgrove, in Victoria, in Stewartville, who said, Dr. Hinds, convince me. I want you to convince me to go out and vote. And I fear that if we do not muster, as Mark Benschop is saying here tonight, we do not muster the courage and the strength to push back against this government in a real way, when we look around for voters in 2025 or whenever the elections are called, they may not be there. Our people are not fools. And while I have confidence that people will not cross over to the PPP, every opposition voter that stays home is a vote for the PPP. So, my sisters and brothers, please light fire under your leaders. Please light fire under them. Please listen to what Brother Mark is saying here tonight, and don't see it as a criticism. See it as a constructive critique. Dr. King, when he critiqued America's position in Vietnam, he said, I criticize America because I love America. I love America. Mark, we have seen this stampede. You know the PPP, you've studied them, you have looked at them over a long period of time. What is their end game? Why this systematic attack on African Guyanese? What's the end game? What is it they're trying to do? Are they trying to get black votes? Are they trying to beat down the spirit of black people so that they will prostrate and allow them to walk away with our assets? What's their end game?
All of the above, to beat down the spirit primarily of the support base of the coalition, uh, mainly the People's National Congress reform. So far, it appears as though they're winning because there's a lack of strong leadership in the opposition. Leadership that is lacking in every area. I don't know why that these folks are afraid to confront the PPP. And when we talk about confronting the PPP, no one is talking about violence. We're talking about standing up and represent the interest of your people. We're not seeing that. What we're seeing is a bunch, for the most part, mind you, and I'm not painting all of them in the opposition with the same brush, but for the most part, we have a bunch of arrogant individuals in the opposition who claim to be representatives of the people. And if they could be so arrogant when they're outside of power, God, imagine how they would be were they in power. And this is why we are where we are as of today, because of that arrogance by some of these very people. When they were in office, they were even equally arrogant as some of them are. Some of them don't understand politics. Some of them don't understand how it is to campaign. Some of them don't understand how is it to relate to people. Some of them don't understand that they are basically servants of the people. But yet some of them we hear that, oh, they have another job to do. And, what a thing that people don't have anything. No, you are being paid. You are a servant of the people of Manchester Village, the people of Buxton, the people of Belladrum, the people of Linden, wherever it is, Lethem, wherever, Madja, you are representatives of the people. You are servants of the people. You're being paid handsomely. Some may argue otherwise, but I think 300 plus thousand or whatever they make per month, that's a heck of a lot of money. Duty-free concessions, that is a lot of access to these sort of things that they have to represent the interest of the people. Representing the interests of the people is not coming on social media and have some show where they sit down and gaff and talk. The PPP is going to be ahead if these people continue to gaff, continue to talk. They have to find a different strategy. We oftentimes hear that they're strategizing. Everything you talk to them about, they have a strategy. They have a strategy for this, they have a strategy for that, but yet we're not seeing what the strategy is. But every day the PPP continue to bulldoze and brutalize mainly members of the supporters, to break their spirit, like you said. And an opposition should be strong enough to ensure that this corrupt and racist PPP regime is not going to become winners in breaking the spirits of the people in the opposition or supporters of the opposition. It should never happen. In fact, supporters of the coalition should be ready. They should be ready. Anytime there's elections called, they should be ready to go out in their numbers to vote these convicts in the PPP out of office. Were elections to be held tomorrow? Are the people energized in the opposition to do that? Are they motivated to do that? I doubt that they're motivated. Hence the reason why the leadership of the coalition, if there is a coalition, they need to get their act together immediately. Otherwise, next elections, you know what happened? Because of the stupidity and the arrogance of some of these folks in the opposition, cat will eat their dinner. And when cat eat their dinner, They're not going to be the losers because they're comfortable with their monthly salaries. They're comfortable with their duty-free concessions. And you know who can eat the dinner? The bulk of their support base, who basically are being brutalized by these criminals in the PPP regime. But when we talk about these things, you hear that maybe a Benschop got a personal axe to grind. Yes, I have a personal axe to grind. You know what that personal axe is? That those folks in the opposition have been elected. I voted for them. Hundreds of thousands of people voted for them for proper representation. And when you don't give me proper representation, you're insulting me. You're disrespecting my vote. You're disrespecting the time that I walked into that voting booth to put my trust in you guys. And so did hundreds of thousands of people in Guyana put their trust in you guys to represent our interest, not just on social media where you come and talk, but on the ground as well. To be proactive, to put boots on the ground when it's necessary, not to be a bunch of pussycats who are afraid to speak out, who are afraid to be locked up, who are afraid to protest, who are afraid to stand up for the people when they're being brutalized by the PPP regime. Just imagine all those members of parliament. We can count on one hand the amount of those members of parliament who went in to stand in solidarity with the people of Mocha. We can count them. Again, like I've said in the beginning, I'm waiting to see a Ramjatan in Mocha. He's not going to go in Mocha. I'm waiting to see that. This is not an attack on Ramjatan. Ramjatan is a friend of mine. But this is about politics. This is about a people who need representation. It is not just about political power and personal power amongst these guys in the coalition. We're hearing now that, and this is Jim Cockbring Ramgoat's story, and I'm surprised that Aubrey Norton, who is supposedly a political scientist, is allowing himself and his support base to be taken for granted and used by the AFC in saying that they pulled out of the coalition, but they have a working relationship in parliament. It is not going to happen. Sooner or later, we're going to hear and we're going to see that the AFC will be voting on the same side of the PPP. And then they're going to say that's in the interest of the people. The AFC is done with the PNCR. The AFC is done with the coalition. The only time that the AFC is going to get back is when they feel that they need a support base so that they can use, once again, the supporters of the PNCR and the supporters of the APNU so that they can get back into office, either hold some seats or whatever it is. But I hope the people in the coalition, the support base of the PNCR mainly, are paying careful attention to this. How much longer should people be used by these opposition, these politicians, these self-serving politicians? And I'm speaking primarily those in the opposition. Forget about those bandits in the PPP. We know what they are about. But it is time for proper leadership, stronger leadership. Where are those who were running for office? Why aren't they speaking out? Why aren't we hearing from a Dr. Richard Van West Charles, who so eagerly wanted to be leader of the PNC? We're not hearing from a Harman. We're not hearing from these people. But yet every day Guyanese are being brutalized. Their support base is being brutalized. PNC members are being brutalized. But where are these people who were so concerned about PNCR people and were so concerned about Guyana? Or are we just going to hear about them when there's a next elections, Congress to the PNCR coming up this year? And I hope Congress is being held and no excuse because there's no pandemic right now. The only pandemic that we are faced with right now in the opposition is a pandemic of incompetence by those in the opposition.
Mark Benschop, political activist, pioneer on this social media platform. sticking it to our leaders tonight. And I do believe that there is a place for this kind of critique. I continue to say that. There is a place for this kind of critique. My studies of regimes, authoritarian regimes, is that it is never easy to confront an authoritarian regime. But if you frame the regime as authoritarian, then your approaches to the regime would change. When you have a leader who says bluntly, I bulldozed those houses because I didn't want to look weak, then what must the opposition say? I will offend your bulldozers because I do not want to look weak also. You all hear me? I will offend your bulldozers. There is a place for critique. Because if you framed Moko as a flashpoint, as a demonstration of the agenda of the PPP, then your response would have been more forthcoming. If you framed it as just another incident, then you do as Mark has been pointing out for certain night. I think the opposition missed the boat on this occasion. I think they missed the boat. And going forward, there has to be a change in approach. Because by the time we get to the next election, I'm warning you all, I've been saying this over and over again. I understand electoral parties put their store in election, but there's a relationship between election and the demolition of people's homes. There's a relationship between election and taking away bread from people's mouth in front of the hospital. There is a relationship between election and the spirit of your people. If the people's spirits are crushed, there will be no enthusiasm to go to the polls. I said before, we did the impossible in 2011 and 2015. And many would argue in 2020. Our people are capable of rising to the occasion. They went there for us. They put power in our hands. Now they're being beaten. What are we doing? They voted for us like a boss. 2011, 2015, 2020. Must we not defend their interests like a boss? Picnic, stick broke your ways, gang say. Picnic, stick broke your ways. Stick broke. Are we ears? Are we not see? Are we not hear? Every time they beat up on our people, it's another nail in that coffin that the PPP want to bury our people in. Are we going to wait until they put us in the grave? Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, Brother Claude McKay said that if we must die, then let it not be like hogs. As you watch, they treat the hogs and the people of Moko the same way. Does it not churn your inside? Does it not tell you this is not a simple question? This is about people's humanity, hearts and people. You all in this audience got a role to play because these leaders come to you all and you all just smile. I know we are a very loving people and we get manners. We don't jump in, we lead a face and carry on. But even if you have to pull them aside, please tell them, Mark Benschop says they got to do better. Tell them. They may say, Mark is a voice in the wilderness. But if you tell them, Mark said, it's a critical time. Mark Benschop, the minister, says that he's going to take away land from the cooperatives now. Are you surprised?
What minister?
The minister of labor. What's his name? The boy that used to be in the PNC.
The planting chip guy who disguised himself as a minister, planting chip guy. They're not ministers. They're just not ministers. They're installed individuals who basically are squatting. They're squatters right now. They're the biggest squatters. They're squatting at the office of the president. They're squatting in the ministries. And these squatters, these notorious squatters, are calling people squatters. Look at most of them where they live now. They squatted on the land. Pradoville 1, squatters' land. They are squatters. Then Jack Deere went over to Pradoville 2 and took away ancestral lands, squatting on people's lands. A lot of them, in terms of, we got to be realistic. I have some Indian relatives, and sometimes I remind them that, hey, guess what happened? A lot of the lands that we see and folks who got a break were given a break from African individuals who were able to pool up and buy and purchase their lands and so forth. I say, hey, Betty, go over there. You could build your little house over there, no? Oh, better go over there and build your little house and so forth. So this squatting is always, it is part of the Guyanese culture that these bandits in the PPP, these political bandits, suddenly have become born again Christians, so to speak. They're born again. They're against squatting. They're not against squatting. They want to covet the lands mainly of persons of African descent. That is what they want to do. Look at when Lincoln Lewis had that problem with individuals squatting on his ancestral land, a land that his grandfather, his great-grandfather, and so forth, Mr. McPherson, purchased. Anil Nandalal is telling the people out there in Lovely Lass and some other area, you go squat, you go take the land. When they were in the opposition, they were encouraging people to squat. Go and squat. When the PNC or the coalition were attempting to regularize, they said, no, you go squat. The people on the East Coast, Pigeon Island and so forth, you go squat. Suddenly squatting, because it's convenient for these PPP bandits to say squatting is illegal, squatting is wrong. Squatting is not wrong. It is legal. You see land, that is why it's part of the Constitution. But these PPP bandits in 2011, they were able to trample upon the rights of the people. They were able to mess all over the Constitution they have an amendment back in 2011 where they're saying you cannot apply for prescriptive rights because they had an agenda. And their agenda is to do exactly what they're doing today, was to evict the people, mainly persons of African descent, evict them, kick them out, and give them a little piece of land in some pasture, or give them a piece of house that looked like a foul pen, that they're offering the people some sort of alternative and that they care about the people. They don't give a damn about the people. They're all about themselves, and it's time that we have a strong opposition that will be able to stand up to these kunumunus, these convicts, these political convicts, these bandits, these political riggers, these squatters at office of the president, and these squatters in all of the ministries in Guyana. Stand up to them. It's not happening. And like you've said, their objective is to break the spirit of those in the opposition, so that when it comes time for elections, you're going to hear, oh, they did not represent you. Oh, they didn't care about you. And so they get one and two of these Uncle Toms. Some of them are in Linden. Some of them get a little contracts and so forth. And they're going about saying people, hey, look what the PPP is doing now. The opposition never, like one guy said to me, what did the coalition do for the people of Mocha when they were in office? And my explanation was, don't think you're going to try to brainwash me with that crap, because the opposition did a lot. They could have done more, don't get me wrong. But after the PPP regime, that corrupt regime, destroyed Guyana for 23 plus years. Let us be realistic. You think the coalition would have been able to clean all that mess up in just a few years? But let us talk about the people of Mocha. In 2017, 150 plus of those folks in Mocha, villages in Mocha, got for the first time titles, legal documentation to lands that they were occupying without any sort of title. In 2017, the coalition did that for the people of Mocha. But yet for 23 years, the PPP did crap for people. For 23 years, the PPP were giving out 50 by 40 and 50 by 100 house lots, small house lots of people. Thousands of people never got their house lots. But when the coalition got in there, things changed. We start to see a system that was better for all Guyanese, not just for Guyanese of African descent, but all Guyanese were able to benefit from a proper system that was put in place, a legal system, a system that we saw equitable distributions of our lands. Unlike what happened to the PPP when the PPP were in office. People's lands were bulldozed. Their friends and their concubines and their sweet woman and their sweet man and all these different things got 4, 5, 6 house lots. Meanwhile, Auntie Jane in Sophia couldn't even get a piece. Auntie Betty probably at Port Moran and Blackbush, they couldn't get anything. So I don't want individuals to come to tell me or attempt to brainwash supporters of the PNC or the coalition to say that the coalition didn't do anything. The coalition did a goddamn lot. Could they have done more? Yes, they could have done more, but they did a lot compared to what these PPP vagabonds did in 23 years. Piracy was almost eradicated. Piracy. Every single week, fishermen couldn't go to fish. They couldn't do anything because some of their very own members of the fishing community belonged to the PPP. They were out there. They were going after fishermen. They were stealing fishermen's seine. And the PPP knew that, but they weren't doing anything to address piracy. The coalition addressed that. Extrajudicial killings. The PPP didn't give a damn about that. Young black men, mainly young black men, and their parents were afraid when their sons go out and so forth, that they would have been slaughtered by members of the Guyana Police Force and condoned by the PPP. All of these things have changed under the coalition. Look at what we have returned to. Almost a narco state again. A state that we see narco money. We see drug lords who are disguising themselves now as legitimate businessmen, pomposetting themselves in the private sector commission. We see gold smugglers. We see money launderers. We see quite a few of these individuals who are on law enforcement radars in the United States of America. Some of them are known, but these are people who are being embraced and supported by the PPP and are given hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars in our tax dollars. We see individuals who are part of the shore base and all these different things of questionable characters. We see individuals who are basically corrupt and are wanted by U.S. law enforcement agencies are talking about they're giving back stuff and they believe in development of Guyana and all this crap. They're not concerned about development of Guyana. They are concerned about targeting poor people. They're concerned about taking away the lands of mainly black folks, persons of African descent. We got to keep an eye on what's going to happen on the Suez-Linden Highway, of which there is no opposition representation there. But they're too busy trying to dress up. This is not about dress up. This is not about fancy suits. This is not about fancy hairstyles. This is not about fancy makeup and fancy high heel shoes or whatever. That cannot do anything to represent the people. Take your shoes off, take your boots off, get on the ground and represent the interests of the people, because cat will eat the dinner of all of your supporters if the opposition do not get their act together. All of them in the opposition. Ramjatan and the AFC, I don't know what they're doing. I hardly see AFC members of parliament out there representing the interests of the people. Look at what has happened to GCOM. The chairwoman of GCOM is doing all sorts of things, all sorts of Jim Cockburn Ramgoat story, and the opposition is quiet. Ramjatan is quiet. The man who said that Claudia Singh got to go, Aubrey Norton, is quiet. They're not there in front of GCOM. Thousands of them should have been in front of GCOM. Look at the nepotism at GCOM. Look at the friends and cronies that we see that the chairwoman of GCOM just recently, Anil Giddings, is being given another position. We hear that friends of the chairwoman is being given position $1 million a month and all these different things. And nobody's speaking out about these things. Ramjatan is comfortable in his home, enjoying his life, enjoying his pension as a former minister of Home Affairs and all these different things. We got extrajudicial killings have returned to Guyana. All these sort of killings have returned. And nobody in the opposition, people are hardly speaking out. But yet we find that they have all the energy in circulating audio tapes about some conversation about who write blank checks and who. Meanwhile, the installed regime is writing themselves checks worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But those in the opposition can only sit down, some of them, and discuss who write 20 blank checks, who in write blank checks. And man tell me write a check. Who write a is that the sort of opposition we should sit down and accept? Right now, the biggest blank checks that is being written is a blank checks by these corrupt individuals in the PPP regime, and that blank checks is basically given to the ordinary class people of that country. It's a blank check, and when you take it to the bank, guess what? It bounces, and the people suffer. They continue to suffer because of lack of leadership. Forget about these bandits in the regime, the PPP. We don't expect better from them. They're basically a bunch of Ponzi schemers. They're basically a bunch of flatfoot hustlers. That is what they're about. They're not patriotic. They don't concern about Guyana. Every time they're targeting, look at Rhonda Lane. They have targeted this ordinary woman all because she speaks up. They're targeting people with this cybercrime bill. It's only opposition people they're targeting. And Ramjatan and these guys, they're not saying anything. It's like they don't care, and they expect us to stay quiet. And when we speak out, some of them probably endorsing each other. Here, Benschop and Benschop bitter. And if you want to say I'm bitter because you're not representing the interest of the people. And I have a message for all of those who run around last election saying they want to be elected and they want this. I have a list with you guys. A setting for y'all come out of your comfort zone and again cry and beg how much y'all care about the people. But as soon as elections over, whether it's party elections or whatever, majority of them gone in the nest. They gone in the comfort zone. They don't care about the people. I'm watching them. And this time, a long time.
This time a long time, this time a long time, this not day before time. Mark Benschop, always a pleasure, my brother, to have you on. And you bring your own style, your own analysis, independent as they come. You put licks on the other side, they must get licks. And you say to those on our side, pull up your pants, pull up your skirt, because our people are in trouble. Good night, my brother.
Before I go,
Yes,
the party founder leader Forbes Burnham, your friend,
my friend.
would have celebrated his 100th birth anniversary. I made a post that what is it that the party is doing in remembrance of Forbes Burnham? All I heard was, oh, we planning, You're planning what? You're planning what where? And these people, sometimes it seems as though they're void of good ideas. And when you offer them some sort of constructive criticism or some sort of idea, they always know it all. But let me give them some free advice right now. That if they're concerned about their founding leader, then there should be chess competition throughout their support base. Then there should be some cricket match. Then there should be some soccer match in honor of the memory of Forbes Burnham. There should be something. But instead, all you hear is, we planning, Don't worry with Benschop. We planning. All of them planning. All of them planning. But I can put a smile on your face, Dr. Hinds. Anyways, all of them planning.
Lyndon, I heard sometime last year somebody mentioned that former President David Granger was spearheading a group that was planning something. Somebody mentioned that to me sometime last year. But I would be flabbergasted if Fox Burnham's 100th birth anniversary was not celebrated in a big way by the People's National Congress.
There's no big way. There's no vision. There's no big way. There's absolutely nothing. All they do, they quick to get vexed. If they want some good ideas, then the leadership should surround themselves with people who have good ideas and good plans and good vision and so forth and so on, instead of surrounding themselves with mediocrity. Sometimes it shows. But I do feel that it should have been chess competition, essay competitions, and so forth. They have a lot of supporters in the diaspora. They got the North America PNCR chapter and all these different things. Those are folks who are genuinely concerned in helping and doing things for the party. And I'm sure they would have been happy to have a soccer match out there in honor of Forbes Burnham in Region 10, in Linden, in Ituni, and so forth. These are things that we should be hearing because, hey, these bandits in the PPP do it, but yet these arrogant guys in the opposition, they know it all, and then when you do things, they say you're trying to embarrass them. The other day, they had a party office, it's not properly kept and all these different things. Oh, my. Oh, it's a reflection of the leadership that the party currently has. And when you talk about the leadership, some of them are going to get vexed. But it's right back to the doorstep of the leadership. Where are those guys? Where are the central executive people? Where are people like Gary Best and all these people who were so concerned? We don't even hear from them. It's like they don't exist. You don't see them out there. Now it's not time for sweet pie and sweet girl politics. Gary Best, when last you see these guys out there with the people holding hands? You don't see them. But you're going to see them, probably drive by over at Bamba Mali, knock a beer, and they get a bunch of dotishness with talk, big talk. They're big talkers, a bunch of bluff. All of them, most of them are a bunch of bluffs. They're afraid. to confront the PPP. And it's becoming more and more obvious. Dr. Hinds, we can go on for another hour. I don't know who told you to invite me today, but today is a
Mark Benschop, thanks, my brother.
so
We got to go now because I don't want to offend Mr. Duncan, who I'm stealing some of his time.
them guys go over into people's time. Them guys don't care about people's time. Let's be realistic. The man is concerned about themselves. So we can go over. These guys are not concerned about people and unity. It's all about themselves. It is a stage, and they're there to perform for themselves. But anyways, we understand better because we came from a school where we understand better in politics. Some of them just don't understand that. But thank you for your consideration, though, Dr. Hinds.
Thank you, Mark, and I'll see you in sooner rather than later. Thank you very much, my brother. Good night.
Thank you.
And good night to you, our loyal viewers. Good night. I want to say a shout out to the Robertsons of in Atlanta, Georgia. Well, I don't know whether it's Atlanta, Georgia, or Georgia. They were in
this
Arizona.
Is Attorney
I met them at
Washington,
a function this weekend,
owner and
they
founder
recognized
of
me.
the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.